Hello there, indie warriors. Literary Rose here with I Dream of Indie to talk to you about Seduction: Amongst Fate on the Nintendo Switch. Seduction: Amongst Fate is a single-player, side-scrolling adventure game with a horror theme, developed by KOEX Studio and published by eastasiasoft. You play a young monk named Lee who is struggling with nightmares after you are moved to a different room in the monastery, specifically nightmares of a woman with long black hair dressed in white. The abbot chastises you for thinking of women and tells you to clear your mind, but that night, you instead awake in a dark, strange world of spirits, monsters, and puzzles. Through your journey out of this place, you uncover dark truths about the monastery and your past. The first thing that caught my attention with this title is the art style. It reminded me of The Cat Lady, a psychological horror game from Harvester Games, if you're familiar with that, which in my books is always a good thing. I loved the use of colors to balance darkness and brightness, which I would consider essential in any game leaning towards horror. Obscurity increases tension, but too much leaves the player lost and frustrated, and I would say this game balances it very well. There's also a certain jankiness to the movement that sounds like a negative, but it really is this purposeful, artistic, atmospheric choice that I enjoyed. Overall, the third-person hand-drawn aesthetic of this game is fantastic and a major selling point. Seduction: Amongst Fate leans on the mythical stories rather than the human psyche to explore these horror underpinnings. Legends form a strong backbone to the creatures of this game, as well as all the lore you pick up as you explore this strange realm. So while none of these spooked me, this wasn't the intention. It's a mood. It's a vibe. Feel free to cringe at my old lady attempts to be a youth. You scroll side to side, surprise there, through intricate environments, searching for key items and clues to solving various puzzles through your way. While none of the puzzles were too challenging, there were a few that left me stumped. I actually rage quit in my initial playthrough because I got stuck in an opening segment with no clue what to do. I literally interacted with everything I could that gave me a prompt over and over, but I could not figure out what the game wanted me to do next. But thanks to the wonderful Let's Players of YouTube, I figured out that this fairly average spot that apparently I had to do a prompt on was what I needed. I used my prayer powers in order to open up and get a shovel to drop from a tree. Don't question it, it's a horror game, but I was able to move on. A similar issue arose in an indoor area with many similar looking corridors and doors, as well as an underwater area with slow movement and limited swimming because, you know, our monk man is holding his breath. I wasted so much time wandering these areas, which might be okay if you're just playing the game and have more patience than I do, but it's really frustrating when you're trying to review it. And even outside of the reviewing context, I do think these areas were more confusing than they needed to be, and where you had to go should have been telegraphed a little more. Outside of these nuances, the game is not difficult to complete and only took me a couple of hours to reach the conclusion, and I'm sure it would have been even less time without all my wandering. It ran without issue on the Nintendo Switch, although I did sort of hate the button prompts for certain events. There was a kind of delay, I would say. I would press the button, let's say it was the right button on my controller, to match the on-screen prompt, but then it would be delayed by maybe a full second. Thankfully though, this issue didn't cost me any significant gameplay, although I had a close call with a spider. And for accessibility, it's not really a big feature of this game. What you see is what you get. You can adjust the volume, the text size, and the difficulty. Finally, the music was very well done. I greatly enjoyed it. The sound effects were clear and helped guide me in certain sections, and that eerie background music was sufficiently spooky. I can't tell exactly what instruments were used, but it sounds a bit like a moon lute, or perhaps thinking of a completely different instrument. It's called a zeng. I apologize for my lack of knowledge and undoubtedly poor pronunciation, and if you can identify the instruments, please drop me a comment. Overall, Seduction: Amongst Fate is a decent adventure game with an intriguing story and great visuals and audio accompaniment, but prepare for some wandering and frustration, and maybe hit up a few YouTube videos.
We thank you so much for supporting clickbait-free content here at I Dream of Indie. We can't possibly make it without you. We would now like to take a moment to shout out our brave indie warriors that support this channel through channel memberships. At the Indie Warriors tier, we have Bill, Adriana Amato, CJR, Julian Colbus, Ray Lynn, Marky Mint, Dave Harp, Peekaboo, Lex Noyle, Christian Cruz, PSC, Solaru C, and Chic Geek. At the Indie Legends tier, we have Nathan Moore, Skeptism, Mitchell Hall, Jen Rose, Chris Jackson, Mr. W, Blue Francis 14, The Beefarinis, Business Cody, Chiron, Jace Glover, King of the Hatch, Ophidian Mind, Lord Metroid, Seacoil, and Larkison. Thank you so much for all that you do for independent developers, publishers, and for I Dream of Indie. Everybody else head down to the description box below. Let's defeat the gaming echo chamber and bring a voice to the voiceless ones in gaming.